Did I make it? I think I'm here. I think I'm in. I'm not sure. Hey, somebody tell me if I'm in. Hey, sorry I was a little bit late. I was signed into the wrong account on YouTube and I couldn't figure out why I didn't have anything scheduled for tonight because I could have swore I did. So thank you all for being patient with me. And we're going to be giving some shout outs here in just a second. If you want to turn in your Bibles tonight, we're going to be looking actually two passages tonight. The first one we're going to be looking at is 1 Thessalonians chapter 4. So if you want to grab your Bible and start flipping over that direction, that's where we're heading first. We'll be in chapter 4. We're going to start in verse, where are we at here? 13. So, yeah, appreciate you guys being in. Got 12 of you in here, right? So we'll take a minute here and do some shout outs and see where we are. So I have a question for all of you. No one has acknowledged that I'm here yet, so I'm just assuming that I'm on because I have no way to tell if this is actually going out anywhere. So if somebody could please tell me if you see my face and hear my mouth making noise, that would be awesome. So, yeah. So, all right. Hi, everybody. Really appreciate it if somebody would tell me if you could see me. Hi, Tim. I see you. Thank you, Amy Hogshead. So I was just hoping that somebody could see me here because I have no way to tell if this is working. All right, everybody jump in the comments. Tell me, have you ever heard of a software program called Cahoots? It's a kind of we used it for those of you who were at game night a couple weeks ago. Toby Hertenstein did a like a fun thing on the screen with it, and it's kind of a question, I don't know. You take polls with it. You can ask questions, and people can answer. So I'm just curious if any of you have any experience with Cahoots. I'm thinking about signing up for an account so we can use it for things like this, and possibly on Sunday mornings with some different things. So yes, Eric, I said Kahoot. That's it. That is the one we're looking for. Kahoot. Kahoot. So any of you who have experience with that, tell me. It's not terribly complicated. We figured it out that night pretty quickly, and it's something I'm thinking about signing up for a professional account too, so I can use it. So you do use it, Eric. Eric, I'm just curious. We don't have to talk about it here in front of everybody. I'm just curious of your thoughts of it. So if you think it works well, because it seems like it works pretty well. I set up some fake quizzes with it today and was taking them, and just curious. It's pretty easy once you put the app on your phone. I'd have to pay for it on my end, but all of you then could use it for free, so it doesn't cost you any money. But just seems like it's kind of a fun thing, and it's a way to get, you put out a question, and you could do it like true, false, or put up some multiple guesses and things like that. And it's, Parker, that's what I thought. It seemed like it was a school thing. So all you youngins out there should know what that is. So I also, before I give a few shout outs here tonight, I want to apologize. I don't know what in the heck is going on up on the third floor, but it sounded like they were driving a car up there a little bit ago. So if anybody, if you hear something, just know I don't know what's happening up there, but they're doing something. So, all right, some exciting news from around Wayne Street. We got the new windows last week. We are about 80% of the way through getting the new roof on the school on the church here. So they were here today, and they've got most of it up. It looks nice. It matches what's on the education wing of the building. It matches what's on the rest of the building, and it's a metal roof, and it looks fantastic. So, I don't know that much about putting on roofs, but it looks like they're about done. So hopefully by Sunday, we'll be able to see something. I think they're trying to get it done before the weather apocalypse that's coming this weekend strikes. So, all right. So anyways, so that'll be something cool you guys check out. All right, let's do some shout outs. Who we got here? Amy Hogshead, of course, is here. Amy, good to see you tonight. Matt Clement says Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Matt. And glad to have you here tonight. Susan Benjamin. Now, we had a Susan Eggery in here before, but I don't know who the Susan Benjamin is. But hey, Susan, we're glad to have you. And Eric Gurman is here. How you doing? Parker's in the house. Scott Moran. Hi, hey, buddy. I'm glad to have you here. Brian Lynch says, Matt Clements is coming, Tim. Don't get started on the good stuff until he gets here. Well, we're a long time for me getting to the good stuff, so I think we're going to be safe there. But good to have you in here, Brian. Thanks. Cindy Moran, thanks for signing in. Appreciate having you here. Chris Jacobs, how you doing, Chris? I just remembered I have not emailed you the Advent reading, haven't I? That was very responsible of me. So if you would drop me an email as soon as I'm done here, as soon as I log off, remind me and I will send you that reading for Sunday. So I'm doing pretty good. I remembered that all by myself. I'm proud of myself. Beth Reedy, good evening. Good to see you. And Amy says she can see me good. Eric, thank you. Who else we got here? Parker. Yeah. Oh, Brian likes Kahoot. Okay, cool. Jan Moran, how you doing? Used Kahoot. Okay. Parker says the Boy Scouts. Boy Scouts use Kahoot. I don't know. Let's see here. And hello, Terry. Good to have you. And Nancy, good to have you guys signed in tonight. Merry Christmas to you, Ange. And glad to have you. Appreciate all you guys coming out tonight. If while we're doing this, if you could possibly leave a like on this, click that thumbs up. Let us know that you're appreciating that. Man, I sound like a real live YouTuber now. Yeah. Like, share, subscribe, and all that cool stuff. So I hope you guys are all praying for the weather for this weekend. I mean, it's just going to be you're probably going to need a one-horse open sleigh to get around this weekend, it sounds like. So I hope everybody's going to get something warm to wear for Christmas this year because it's going to be nasty. So I want you all to be careful if you're out and just watch out for that cold weather. All right. Tonight, I'm going to cheat on this a little bit. I know we're talking the whole point of this exercise or the whole point of this Advent study was to do Jesus' return in Jesus' own words. We're going to get to that when we get to the second part, and we're going to look at Revelation. But we're going to take a look at Paul tonight. So obviously, this is not Jesus speaking. Jesus inspired Paul, and y'all know Paul's story of the road to Damascus and knocked to the ground and the light and all that, turned his life around. So you're all super familiar with that. But Paul actually wrote most of the New Testament, and he had actually quite a lot to say about Jesus' return. Now, if you go back and read some of, or all of Paul's letters we have in the New Testament, and all right, challenge here for you. While I'm doing this opening, everybody get in the comments and type the name of a book that Paul wrote. Go. Name any book that Paul wrote. Just pick one from the New Testament. I don't care which one. There's a whole bunch of them. Name a book that Paul wrote, and you get a free shout out if you do that. So, so Paul wrote a lot of the New Testament. Now, one of the things that Paul wrote about was he truly believed that. Thank you, Chris. I just got your email. He believed that Jesus was going to return during his lifetime, and we can debate whether that happened or not because he did meet the risen Christ, which could certainly count as a return, but it's not normally how that's interpreted. So, we got two people said Romans, 2 people says Ephesians, and 4 people are correct. And that's right, Brian. Good job. So thank you, Scott, Eric, Angie, Matt, and Brian. Yes, that's who we're looking at as far as books that Paul wrote. Also, another he wrote, 1 Thessalonians, which we're going to be looking at here tonight. Now, 1 Thessalonians is early in Paul's ministry. In fact, 1 Thessalonians has a distinction of probably being the first book of the New Testament that was written. And if you read it, one of the most famous passages about the return of Christ comes from the book of Thessalonians. If any of you have ever heard of the concept of the rapture, this passage we're going to look at tonight is where that idea comes from, and that's what we're going to look at. We're going to start 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13. That's where we're heading. So at that time, Paul had been in his ministry for a couple of years, and a big question started to come around because, originally they all thought his return was imminent. They thought it was going to happen soon. Now we're here, 2,000 years later. Obviously, it didn't happen, at least not the way they thought it was going to. But, as time started going along and people are like, has anybody seen Jesus? He hasn't come back yet. There was a very pertinent question that came up. People who were believers in Jesus and people who were followers of Jesus and people who were disciples of Jesus and people who were apostles of Jesus are starting to die. So does that mean they missed out? Should we all be taking our vitamins so we can live long enough for Jesus to get here? And that's a major concern. If you're going to live your life following Jesus and you're having faith in the hereafter and eternal life and all those things, and suddenly people start dying without the return of Jesus, does that mean they missed out? Now, obviously, we know today, no. But Paul had to address that issue because that would be an important question that people would have about, well, if people are passing away, how are they going to be able to be a part of the return of Christ? Because obviously, we don't want to say that's the only point to Christianity, but it certainly is a big one. So what about the people who are passing away? So Paul here in his first letter written to the church in Thessalonica wants to address that issue. And so we're going to start here in verse 13, and we're going to take a look. And as I was rereading this, getting ready for today, I found some interesting things here I did not know or hadn't thought about for a long time. And so we can explore that together. So, all right. So we're starting here in verse 13. This is 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 13. And now, dear brothers and sisters, we want you to know what will happen to the believers who've died, so you'll not grieve like people who have no hope. All right. That's a pretty straightforward statement there. Hi, Joyce. Welcome. We're in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, if you want to grab your Bible. That's a pretty straightforward statement. I mean, okay, so he says, here's the issue. We have believers who are passing away. Jesus clearly has not returned, at least not in the way we expected. And so now we need to know, does that mean that those people have missed out? Or are they dying under the old covenant? So people, Paul wants to say to the believers, okay, here's what we have. Okay, so he says it right out. I'm now going to address this question that everybody has. Now if you think about, all the things today that we've talked about, in fact, we talked about a few of them in this study, people have real questions about some of this stuff, and they want to hear their leaders talk about it, which is why it drives me straight up the wall when our political leaders get behind a microphone and they don't say anything. There are a lot of words, but they don't say anything. I feel the same way about pastors. That if you're going to be up there, by George, you better say something. And I don't mean just throw out a bunch of words. You better be able to comment on things that are happening, things that are relevant, because every opportunity that you miss, if there's something relevant that needs addressed, and you fail to speak to that thing, and you fail to make a statement, and people walk away going, "Gosh, I wish we would have talked about that." You have missed the boat, and that's right, Matt. Word salads, and yes, I'm a vegetarian, so y'all know I love salads. However, when you're talking, don't use the word salad. And, God forgive me for saying this. The worst person that we have that does this right now is the press secretary in the White House, Jean-Pierre, whatever her name is. Oh, my heavens. Whenever she talks, I want to jump off a building because she has the ability to talk for a long time and say absolutely nothing. And I know that's the job of a press secretary, but oh, my gosh, that just drives me crazy. So that's what Paul's saying here. Y'all have a concern. I know you have a concern. I know you have this concern because you told me you had this concern. So now I'm going to address it specifically. And you can imagine, I mean, it's the same thing that happens between you and me a lot of the time, is you guys will have a question about something, and I may get in the pulpit, or maybe I'm going to write an article, or maybe I'm going to be here on YouTube, and I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to address this. So you're like, whoa, wait, I have a question about that. So now you're paying attention. Because if I'm going to address something you want to hear about, which is mostly, I'm guessing, why the 25 of you who are here signed into this tonight, is you want to hear what I have to say about the return of Christ. That's why you're here. And that's why we need to get to that. So Paul's now being very specific. Okay. So here's what he says. Here is verse 14. He says, "For since we believe that Jesus died and was raised to life again, we also believe that when Jesus returns, God will bring back with him the believers who have died." Okay, there's a lot going on in this just one verse. The first thing that gets me here, though, and the first thing when I read this earlier today and was getting ready for tonight, jumped off the pages, I'm very, very interested in how he refers to Jesus. Okay, he says Jesus died and was raised to life, and Jesus returned. He uses Jesus' first name, but he doesn't use any title. And I'm not saying he's denying that Jesus is the Christ. Of course not. But what I'm saying is this is a very casual way of referring to Jesus. And I love that. This is, all of you who are in this room, you all call me Tim. That's what I prefer. And I appreciate that. And a lot of people out there, want to stick the title on my name. And I always tell people, if that means something to you, great. Doesn't mean anything to me. But it's a very casual, and it denotes a relationship. You got two people now who are speaking to each other, and you don't have a very close relationship with somebody you're calling, Mr. this or Mrs. that, or Reverend this, and all these titles. So it's a very familiar. So Paul is familiar with the person he's speaking about here. That's why he refers to him by his first name. So no title, and that's kind of cool. I find it to be very cool. He's addressing the biggest question anybody has ever had in the history of the world is what happens after we die, and he's answering the question by speaking about somebody familiar, Jesus. I love that. And Parker, Bishop Miley, you can knock that off. So, okay, so no title. It's just Jesus. The guy we know is Jesus. And I think that's very cool. So, okay, so when Jesus returns, he says he's going to bring back with him the believers who've died. So the people who have embraced this Jesus and what we have, just very familiar. Okay, so pretty big statement to say the people who are died. He says Jesus, using this very familiar terminology to refer to Jesus Christ or the Messiah or all these titles we could give him, using this familiar term, just calling him by his first name. The believers are, according to this, with him, with somebody we're familiar with this Jesus. Now remember, Paul, we have no record of him ever meeting Jesus until after Jesus was crucified and resurrected. We have no record that Jesus and Paul had any interaction at all prior to that. So the only way Paul could be familiar with Jesus is a relationship that he has developed with Jesus after Jesus was dead and returned to life. So Paul now knows Jesus in this very familiar way. I just love that that's how he referred to him here. I think that's wonderful. Okay, so and the first thing he says then is this person that we're familiar with, the believers who have died, are with him. They couldn't return with him if they weren't with him to start with. So the believers are with him. So, all right, he goes on to verse 15. Then he says, "We tell you this directly from the Lord." All right, so and we see Paul use phrases like this. If you read his other epistles, you'll see him use phrases like that, where he talks about, okay, here we're kind of writing what I know, and other times they, well, okay, now I'm writing on behalf of the Lord. He makes a lot of distinctions like that. So here, what he says is, he says, "I have received this from God," and I have what he says. In fact, if you go back to the original translation here, he says, "This is a word from the Lord." And the interesting thing about that is the word, the word in the original language is logos. And any of you Bible scholars out there probably recognize that as the same thing that the Gospel of John uses to refer to Jesus. Jesus is the divine word of God in John chapter 1. It's probably a more theological concept than I want to get into here tonight, but it's the idea that it's the same terminology. So the person who wrote the Gospel of John and the person obviously here who wrote First Thessalonians, which was Paul, both have the same concept of Jesus being the Word of God. And there's a whole deal with that I actually don't want to get into today, because I don't want to give away the sermon for Sunday, because that's where we're going. But that's an interesting parallel that he draws here. So he says, "We tell you this directly from the Lord." Okay, so here it is, directly from God. "We who are still living," okay, those of us who live long enough to experience the return of Christ, "we are still living when the Lord returns, will not meet him ahead of those who have died." Now, again, back to Matt's word salad here. This is a very interesting statement, because that statement says everyone will. Everyone will meet God. Okay, we are all going to stand in His presence, and we who are living, who again under the old school of thought that Jesus was going to return, and we all were going to kind of be ushered into this new age, we're going to get there, and when we get there, we're going to find out the rest of those guys are already there. Now, you want to talk about a message of hope? All these people who've died, which is the reason we have this concern in the first place. What has happened to the people who've died? According to this, they're already there. They are already there. So we're worried they're going to miss out. No, that's not how it is. Paul says they're actually going to be there to welcome us when we arrive. I defy you to give me a more hopeful message than that. I wouldn't even know what it would be. The fact that God has made this arrangement, and now this God that we refer to by his first name, Jesus, which is how you speak to somebody in a familiar, caring way, they're already there. And when we arrive, they're already going to be there. We're not getting there first. If this is a race, which it isn't, but if it was, they're beating us. They're getting there first. And anybody want to respond to that? Our loved ones who passed away, according to this, they're already there. I mean, that's about as good as it gets. I hope you can see that. Me, I'm getting all worked up here. I hope you can see that, because those people are not lost. They're not gone. They are present. That's the number one thing that we're saying here, and how important this is to be able to realize those people are not gone. They're not forgotten. They're not rotting in the ground. They're already there. And I think that's again, as far as beautiful messages, I double dog dare you to try to do better than that one. So, and so they're already there. And we got a few shout outs. And hang on here. I missed a few comments too. Great. My mouse went to sleep. Let's see if I can do this without closing the window. Here we go. And hey, Miriam Lynch. Good to see you here tonight. And Brian, thanks, Pastor. Yes, right, Brian, because you and I are so formal that way. And Matt's asking Yahweh. I didn't go back and check the name of God that's here, so I'll have to check that. I'm not sure if that's the name that's used here or not. And let's see, we got Brian Lynch and Carol Brown and Eric Gurman and Joyce Koenig and Eric again, liking that. Absolutely, who doesn't? So they're already there. So, okay, now in Paul's mind, and quite frankly in my mind, questions answered. Where are they? They're there. I'm good with that. Wherever there is, I'm perfectly happy with that. I need no more explanation. So now Paul moves on to the next question. The next question is, okay, so they're already there. They have answers to questions that we don't have yet. So how's it going to happen? And I think we talked about last week or the week before how when we were talking about Jesus giving warnings about people saying, hey, the Messiah is out there and all this stuff. And Jesus is like, look, don't even go look, because when I come back, y'all going to know it, and you're not going to need nobody to tell you. So why are we not going to need anybody to tell us? Well, that's what Jesus taught us the previous couple of weeks. Well, Paul tells us how we're going to know. So this is verse 16. So our loved ones are already there. Here's what the people who are still alive, whoever that happens to be, here's what they're going to experience. For the Lord himself will come down from heaven with a commanding shout. The implication there, commanding shout, is I think the modern analogy I want to give to this commanding shout is a quarterback calling a play, and given the commands to hike the ball and start the play. The way the quarterback speaks to the team, that's kind of the image we're talking about here. Obviously on a far grander scale, but that's what we're going to do. So everybody on Team God here, we'll say it that way. Everybody on Team God is going to hear that commanding shout, and it's not going to leave any question about what's going to happen. So going to come down from heaven with a commanding shout, with the voice of the archangel. And I found an interesting thing about that. We're going to talk about in a second. So the voice of the archangel, the trumpet call of God. trumpets were always a call to attention. I mean, they still are today. Let's be honest. And so when this comes down, this great attention grabbing thing is going to go out, and people are going to hear it and know exactly what it is. Because think again back to the football analogy. I've been in many football huddles, and I know a number of you probably have been as well. I can tell you inside the huddle, when the quarterback comes in to call the play, everybody is listening. The quarterback is going to say something that's going to make no sense to anybody except the people on the team. So they're going to call a play, and it's going to, inside this hodgepodge of the word salad, using Matt's term here, that the quarterback says, you're going to get the formation, you're going to get the snap count, you're going to get the play, whether it's a run or a pass or whatever, all that information, and the quarterback is going to say that. And honestly, somebody like me could go stand in the huddle, and the quarterback could say the play, and I'll be like, I got nothing. I have no idea what's about to happen, because the players on the team know what all those code words mean, and that's why they use it. To me, that's a perfect analogy to what this is going to be. It's going to be nonsense to the people who don't understand. However, to those who know the play, they're going to be excited. Okay, so now we're going to do this, and I know because of this group is doing this, and this group is doing that, and everybody's going to come together. It's going to be beautiful. Just like a football play that goes like it's supposed to. It really is a beautiful thing if you understand all the pieces and parts and the pulling guards and the motion and the snap count and all these different things. When all that works together, it is a beautiful mess. But every player of the 11 people on the team knows exactly what they're supposed to do. Again, exactly like this. For those of the believers have studied and done the work and done all these things, when this time comes and that play gets called by our divine quarterback, we will know exactly what needs to happen, because we have been preparing, just like the players on the team have put in a whole lot more work than all the fans have, a whole lot more. They know what to do. They know what the command is. They know what all that word salad means. So it's spoken by our leader. It's in words that we understand. And even though it may be nonsense to those who are kind of outside, it makes perfect sense to us. So that's interesting. The next thing, and I did a little checking on this, the voice of the archangel. I didn't really find much on the archangel, because archangel is actually, in English, the word archangel is an untranslated Greek word. So if you go back, it's archangel in the original. I mean, that's the word. So whatever that is, it's an untranslated Greek word that means, very important angel, I guess. But the other thing, I did some checking on the word where it says the voice, and I'm throwing this in for free because this isn't really part of our discussion. I just found it interesting. The term translated the voice actually is the literal translation is the tone. Now I know that doesn't make a whole lot of sense in here, but it's the tone. It's like a familiar sound. Like we all hear sounds and we know what they mean. In fact, I was talking about before I came in here about the people running around upstairs, and I apparently the Cub Scouts or something maybe running around up there. I'm not sure what it is, but when I hear that pounding on the floor, which I hear all the time in here, I know exactly what it is. All day today, I had a funeral this morning, but when I was back in the office this afternoon, all day I was hearing this because people were up on the roof pounding on it, fixing the roof. So I felt like after a while they were pounding right on my skull, but heard that all day. Last week, I was hearing pounding all week last week too, because they were putting in windows. But I knew what that sound meant. A Sunday morning, Daryl starts playing the organ. I know that First Light's about to start. And on Sunday morning, when you hear the, good morning, a lot of times that's how the Awaken service will start. Those are familiar sounds that we know what they mean. And like when you hear the tornado sirens, you know what that means. Or if you're in your house and you hear an alarm go off. I mean, a great example is this thing here. This thing makes all kinds of sound and tells me what to do. I got one sound to tell me there's something on my calendar, another sound that's a text message, another sound that it's an email, another sound that I'm confused. I don't know. It makes all kind of noise all the time. But we know what those sounds mean. That's what this is. Okay, it's a tone, again, that the believers recognize and know what it is. The interesting thing I found about that, though, is the Greek word here is phone, is how it's pronounced. F-O, I don't know how it's spelled, but phonetically it's phone. That's what it sounds like. If you take the Greek letters and translate them into English, here's what it spells. phone, or we would know as phone. So actually, the archangel is phoning it in. That's what it says. That's the comedy section of tonight. But that's where the word comes from. I'm assuming in English, whatever this tone is, that's what the original telephone that we used to have. That's where that word came from. So whatever that's worth, here it is. But it's a tone they recognize again. So the commanding shout, they recognize. The voice of the archangel makes a sound that we recognize. The trumpet call of God, again, used to be in the army, and it may still be that way. You know, they play reveille, and then they would have certain trumpet sounds they played to mean charge, and they would say commands out with a trumpet because everybody would hear it. When you hear the sound, you'd know what it means, and then you'd know what to do. And again, the thing that gets me about this entire verse is the familiarity of the whole thing. You're going to hear things that you'll recognize if you're a part of the team. If you've done the work and you've done the homework, none of this is going to be confusing. You know, when the quarterback jumps in the huddle and calls the play, the worst thing you could have is the guy in the back going, I don't know what that means. Okay, especially if he's the one supposed to go out and catch the ball, man, the play is going to crash if we get to that. So, and again, it goes back to the way in this passage how how Paul refers to Jesus just by his first name. Very, very familiar, again, because they know each other. And that's the really cool piece of this. So in this passage, what I want to really stress to you, and I'm going to continue beating you over the head with this, is the familiarity of the whole thing. It all starts out with all those people who've died. God knew all of them. And they went to be with him, the guy whose name we know. And it was a very familiar. And then when the time comes that Jesus is going to return and get the rest of us, and the world is going to make this transition into this new place that we're going to talk about in a few minutes, it's going to be very familiar. You're going to know what the sounds mean. You're going to know what the instructions are. You're going to know all this stuff because you've done the work. You know, as a believer, you prioritize this, and something good is going to happen from it. So I'm going to get on a soapbox, but I'm not going to do it yet. But it's coming. All right, so let's go on here. So all this have. So first, the Christians who have died will raise from their graves. Those people who are with God, they're going to come up and be a part of this event because they've been with God the whole time. They come up from their graves. Graves here is what's the word? So symbolic. It's a symbolic thing, meaning death. That's what the grave is. So those who are dead are going to return. They're going to rise from that state, much like Jesus did. They're going to rise from that state, and they're going to be a part of this event that's going on because it's familiar to them too. These sounds and instructions that are going out are just as familiar to those who passed away, who are believers, as it is to people who are alive and are believers. Okay, so verse 17. Then together, tell you what, relish that word. Together, relish that word, man. That is a great word. Together with them, those people that we have lost, that we love so much, with them, and we who are still alive and remain on earth will be caught up in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air. That's caught up. That's the word. The Greek word is rapture. So the essentially means snatched. So people are going to be snatched away and be a part of this great, again, familiar experience. That's not going to be something that you don't understand. It's going to be a very important thing that we're going to do together with people that we may not have seen for a long, long time. We're all going to do this together. Again, you want a message of hope? You know, go find a better one than that. I don't know what it would be. And I think that's great. Okay, so we'll be caught up. We'll be raptured up. We'll be snatched up. Meet the Lord in the air. Then we will be with the Lord forever. I mean, happy ending. I mean, I think that'll work. Now it's soapbox time. Verse 18. In my opinion, you could make a case, and I would be willing to make this case, that 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 18 is the most important verse in the Bible. And I do not think I can overstate that. Yeah, John 3:16 is great. Yeah, Psalm 23 is great. And Philippians 4:4 and all those other ones that we all love so much. But this one is great. And this one is one of great verse, also one of the most ignored verses in the entire Bible. And when I read it to you, I want you to have a firm understanding of what was just told to us. The question that's being answered here by Paul, upon the inspiration from God himself, the Holy Spirit working in Paul's life to answer a question that believers in the first century were having. He wrote about what Jesus' return is going to be like. It's going to be a familiar thing, and it's going to be a great thing. So Paul explains it. He explains it in what, 5 verses. I mean, it's not a long, it's not complicated. I've gone through it here in a little over half an hour, and I've really drug my feet on it because I want to really hit on some of these themes. But then you come to verse 18, and this is where people stop reading before they get to verse 18. That's a shame. So what does he say in verse 18? He says, so encourage each other with these words. Some of the older translations say, therefore, comfort each other with these words. Jump in the comments. You tell me, has the return of Jesus and the end of time and the end of days and the end of the world, has that been something that people have used to encourage you? Because that's what it says to do. That's what it says is supposed to happen. This is to be an encouraging thing. That is not how this has been used. This has been used to beat people over the head and scare the hell out of people and whatever else. I think that's terrible. I think that is a travesty, because believers need not fear any of this. Yeah, there's going to be some difficult things happen. I mean, go read Revelation. Good grief. But this is not something that's supposed to be frightening. And the idea that we're trying to, scare everybody straight or whatever it is, that doesn't work. And Paul tells us this. He's answering a fundamental question. So what's happened to people that I love a lot that have passed away? And Paul's like, it's a legit question. So he went into prayer and probably did some fasting and some different things to kind of get his mind right and his heart right, and his life right. And then he wrote what he believed to be the answer. And he wrote what I believe to be one of the most encouraging words or passages in the Bible. Second, probably only to the one we're about to go look at. So anytime anybody is trying to use the idea of the return of Christ to be frightening or whatever, I want you to remember 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 18. That's not what that information was given to us to do. It is not meant to frighten us. I would even go so far as to contend even the book of Revelation and some of the terrible things that are written about in there. I do not believe that was written to frighten us. I think it's been used to frighten us, and that's a real shame, because now we're afraid of something that we should be looking forward to, and that's not how it should be. So, all right, that was my soapbox portion of the show tonight here. All right, I got a few questions here that I've been dancing around. Let's see here. Amy Hogshead said, "Are angels real, and where do they come from?" Are angels real? Yes, because angels are simply messengers of God, much like prophets. And they are real, and they are in attendance to God. And they, I don't know about the little blonde-haired girl with the halo. I don't know if those exist, but messengers from God are everywhere, and doing God's work, they are everywhere, and I believe in them very much. Let's see here. Matt Clements, Gabriel and Michael are definitely real. So is Lucifer. Those, yeah. Oh yeah, they're messengers. And I tell you what, you want to get somebody whose messages you may like, read about Michael. That guy don't mess around. But Gabriel spoke to Mary and Joseph. Good grief. And the other names of angels in the Bible, and sometimes it's easier to put names to these characters. And the very interesting things about the names Gabriel and Michael. Anytime you see a name in the Bible that ends in EL, EL on the end of a name says God. So I'd have to go back and look what it's saying about God. But both of those names are in reference to something about God. So, yep, very interesting. Carol Brown says, "Amen." I certainly second that. Matt says, "I'm ready for Jesus to call the play. Christian army defeats evil. Let's go." I'm with you, man. And I think the plays are being called. We just need the players on the field. But I agree with you. Therefore, is a reference to something that's already been said in the Bible. That's true. And obviously, the therefore that's here is in reference to the instructions about the end of time that Paul gave. So uh, I really want to impress upon the 28 of you who are here. I really want you to hear me when I say this is not meant to be scary. This is not meant to be terrifying. This is being reunited with our loved ones from a God that is so familiar. We refer to him by his first name. That's pretty good, actually. And I want you to be encouraged by that. Not only by the fact that your loved ones are already with Jesus, and the fact that when the time comes that we are going to join them, we're going to do it together. One of the greatest words in the English language is together. And that's how Paul says we're going to do it. And again, I want that to be an encouragement to you, and I think that's important. So, yes, we're going to do it together. Yes, we're going to be with our loved ones, and we're going to hear the play called. It's going to be familiar. We're going to understand it. It's going to come with a bunch of sounds that we recognize. We know what they are. Very familiar, and we're going to go be in the presence of a God that we refer to by his first name. That's great. So where are we going? So let's turn to, hands down, I don't even know if you can argue this, the greatest passage in the entire Bible. Flip all the way to the end. We're going to Revelation chapter 21. This is the grand finale of the Bible, and a grand finale it is. So turn on back to Revelation 21. While you're getting there, let me give you a little background. Revelation was written as a vision from a man named John, and he was on the island of Patmos, an island of prisoners, basically. And while he was out there, God inspired him and basically showed him a movie. Now, was the movie in his head? Was the movie in front of him? Was he transported someplace else? I don't know. But whatever it was that was happened, he had an experience that he then recounted in the book of Revelation, and he wrote it all down. The genre of writing in Revelation is known as an apocalypse. Many of you have heard that word before. In fact, I think I even made a joke about the word apocalypse referring to the weather this weekend. But the word apocalypse actually means uncovering. So say you've got what do I got? If I got my the world's biggest water bottle here. If I take this lid off, it's an uncovering, and that's what the word apocalypse means. It means you have something covered, so you take the cover off. That's apocalypse. So what the book of Revelation is meant to do is to take something that's shrouded in mystery and make it clear. Now, if you've ever read the book of Revelation and clarity was not what you experienced, I'm with you. There's no shade in that, but that's what's supposed to be. Is John was trying to give us an idea of what things were going to happen, and it's fascinating how many times down through history the events of Revelation have come across very clearly. I don't know if that's the word I mean, but we've been able to take that revelation, the revelation of Revelation, and apply it to a lot of different circumstances. And I think there's plenty of examples today where some of the imagery and some of the lessons taught in Revelation will apply almost seamlessly to where we are today. All right, before I jump into this, let me look at a couple comments here. Terry says football has their own playbook, so the Bible is everyone's playbook. Yeah, I playback. No, playbook. Yeah, I would agree. And again, it's knowing the playbook helps you understand the play. And I remember that from my football playing days from a whole lot of years ago. Is that if you didn't know the play, the quarterback talking meant nothing to you. You had to know the playbook. And certainly the Bible, as you can imagine, I would say, great place to start. Matt Clemens says, so excited to be with Jesus, being all ready to win the game. Sorry, but another football reference. We're going to allow that. Lots of football references, and all the bowl games and stuff are coming up, and we're all excited for that. So cool. All right. Now, one of the other things that you'll see, particularly in the closing chapters of Revelation, leading up to chapter 21, where we're going to read at here tonight, is if you look at it real close, what you're going to see is creation actually running in reverse. One of the interesting things about the Bible, I mean, the whole Bible as we have it today, is if you read the opening chapters of Genesis, particularly the first one, where we have the 7 days of creation, and you take the order of the way things were created, and then you pair it to the closing chapters of Revelation, you'll see that one is just basically running backwards. So it's an interesting thing, and that you can see how the exact way we were created is how we are going, how the world is going to be uncreated. I just made up that word, but you understand. And hey, Brian, what you're preaching tonight offers such peace. I ain't got to the good part yet. I'm only scratching the surface. We're getting to the good part now. So fasten your seatbelt because we're going into this. So we're getting to the grand finale that John was experiencing. So he sees this great revelation, and he's experienced this thing. And so Jesus and his kind of spirit guide who's there with him opens up the heavens, and he gets to see what the end result is going to be. And so what is it? So we're in Revelation 21, verse 1. And I want you to know, I read this passage at almost every funeral I do, because I think it's just that great. And I do a lot of funerals. I think this is just too good to ever pass up. All right, so what we got here? Verse 1, Revelation 21, verse 1. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the old heaven and the old earth had disappeared. Now, that's an interesting choice of words, because, again, if I would have told you about the mayhem and destruction that is the book of Revelation, which I cannot deny, there's plenty of that in there. But at this point, it's not destroyed. It's not crushed. It's not burned up. It just disappears. And I went back and checked, and that's the word. That's the word John uses. So what he sees in this transition is it's not necessarily the old destroyed. It's just moved off to the side. So it's not necessarily the destruction of all those things. It just is no longer relevant to the people who are moving on to the new thing. You know, we recently had the absolute blessing of selling Susan's house up in Shawnee. And you know, and there's a great way to look at that. That house still exists. All the things, you know, that happened in that house still exist. They're memories that we have now. But that house is no longer, I don't have to go back and mow the yard anymore. Yes. Very happy about that. But that house is no longer relevant to us. It has disappeared from our field of vision, because we're now in my house down here. So I'm sorry, we're now in our house down here, Susan. Forgive me for that. But the idea is that house, it wasn't destroyed. We didn't burn it down when we left. We didn't, you know, shoot a bazooka into it, even though I'm not going to lie, I thought about that. But we didn't do any of those things. That house still exists in exactly the same form it was in. But it just is no longer a part of our experience anymore. It just disappeared. That's how I think of this. You know, the old heaven and the old earth, it may still exist somewhere, but the believers are moving on, period. We don't even, it's not like we're like, really, God, I really wish you would have destroyed that. No, it's not relevant to us anymore. And look, if the people who are lost want to continue living there, more power to them. I wouldn't recommend that, but that's where they could go. So the idea here is that is just disappeared. It's just no longer a part of our experience. Just like Susan's house up in Shawnee, no longer part of our experience. We're finished there. I have no desire to ever go back there. I have no reason to ever go back there. And even though it was a big part of my life for, you know, a couple of years, I would drive up and see Susan. We have supper together. Stuff anymore. Don't do that no more. You know, and don't need to, because we've turned a corner. Things have changed, and that's the way I look at this. Doesn't necessarily mean the old heaven and old earth were destroyed. It just means they're not relevant anymore. Okay. All right. So the old heaven and old earth disappeared, and the sea was also gone. Again, I don't want to get too far out in the weeds on this, but just know that in the ancient world, the sea he's referring to here is probably the Mediterranean Sea, because it was the one big enough. The Sea of Galilee probably wouldn't be big enough for him to speak about this, but the Mediterranean Sea would have been like the big body of water in that area. That's probably what he's referring to here. There's also a part of the temple that was referred to as the sea. He could also be referring to that. Not sure which one it is, but whatever the sea is, that chaotic, scary, you know, boats would go out and not come back, or the rains wouldn't fall and the crops would all die. I mean, water was such a frightening concept in the ancient world that Now, this new heaven, new earth, irrelevant. We don't have to worry about it. We don't have boats going out on the water and sinking. We don't have rains that don't come and feed the crew. We don't worry about that. Sea's gone. We're not worried about that. That scary, chaotic thing, no longer there. So I would say, especially here in Ohio, we don't worry so much about the sea. Maybe the canal down here, especially here in St. Mary's when it stinks in August, but not a huge concern to us. So I would say, when he says the sea was also gone, substitute in something that really frightens you, something that really bothers you. Whatever it is, gone. That's what this means. The most frightening thing you can think of in your world, gone. Not there. Whatever it is, you pick. Okay? Verse 2. And I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven like a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. Is there any happier day that anybody has in their wedding day? All the pomp and circumstance, and everybody's looking their best, and the families are all there, and the pastor's there, and we're gonna eat and enjoy and all this stuff. Happiest day. So this new world that's being ushered in, that the believers are journeying to together. I'm going to keep throwing that word out there. They're going to. It's as exciting as it's more exciting than a wedding day, and so I think we all would agree it's pretty exciting. So verse 3, I heard a loud shout from the throne. Again, this harkens back to what Paul said about the archangel and this tone and these familiar words and familiar sounds, familiar signals that are coming in there. Harkens back to that. So I heard a loud shout from the throne saying, look, God's home is now amongst his people. Now you think about that. That is a radical change from how God was perceived of, like in the Old Testament. Because think about all the places they had for God to dwell. They had an ark, they had a tabernacle, they had a temple. All these things were built. You had the Holy of Holies and all these different structures and things were built so that they would have a representation of where God was existing. And this place, don't got none of that, because God is out. Again, sounds a lot like the Garden of Eden, where Adam and God would go on a walk through the garden. It sounds very much like that. And very much there. And this is something that's being announced. I heard a loud shout from the throne saying, look, God's home is now among his people. He will live with them. They will be his people. God himself will be with them. Now, that's a pretty amazing statement, especially from somebody that, at least as it used to be, when the priest would go into the Holy of Holies, they had to tie a rope around his waist in case he messed up so they could pull his body out, because we ain't going in there after him. It's a very big change from that to a God we call by his first name, as we did in 1 Thessalonians 4. So that's a pretty amazing change. And the familiarity here is just wonderful. To be able to stand in the presence of God just like you stand in the presence of anybody else. That's great. But it's not like God's just going to be there, okay? It's not like he's just going to be a passive observer or somebody who's just there to high five everybody or whatever, even though I do think he'll be there for that purpose. He has a very specific reason for being there. Verse 4. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. What more comforting image for that? Somebody to wipe a tear from your eyes. Think about the person you'd allow to do that. Suppose you were in a public place and you're walking along and you do that terrible thing where you hit your funny bone in your knee and you have a tear walk down, start to go because it's just that reaction because it hurt. If a stranger came up to you and said, hey, let me help you with that, and they wiped it off with their thumb, buddy, you're going to deck that guy. He's going to be crying too in about 2 seconds, because we don't allow strangers to be that familiar with us. The number of people in your life that you could legitimately walk up to. Now, you could walk up to any crying person and say, can I help? Is everything okay? Sure, you could do that. But to actually touch somebody's face and wipe a tear from their eyes, that is very familiar. Anybody, if I, for whatever reason, would cry in public, I don't know why I would do that, but if I would ever cry in public and somebody I didn't know or somebody I didn't know that well come up and did that, I'm not going to respond well to that because it's weird. However, somebody I knew well came up and did that. I mean, that would be a very comforting moment. That's what's happening here. This is a very, very familiar action. You know, you might wipe a tear out of your kid's eye or maybe wipe a tear out of your spouse's eye, but you wouldn't do that to a stranger because you'd just be like, you know, you're like, here's a guy crying. And you're like, oh, they're there. Okay, go away. Right? That's what we would do. But in this is a very familiar thing. Somebody who knows you well and to wipe a tear from your eyes. This is a very intimate, very, very friendly, very close connection. This is not arm's length, you know, God that's out there somewhere. This is a God right here in front of you and is recognizing that you're upset about whatever it is you're upset about and wipes a tear from your eyes. And then in the way only God could do, and this is probably my favorite sentence in the entire Bible. I know I've said that like 12 times tonight, but deal with it. He says, he'll wipe away every tear from their eyes, and there will be no more death, no more sorrow, no more crying, no more pain, for all of these things are gone forever. Where did they go? They went with the first world that disappeared. Okay? They may still exist somewhere, but they ain't here. Wherever we are at that point, together with our loved ones, as we were told earlier, wherever they are, these ain't. Death, sorrow, crying, and pain. No, we don't have those anymore. Okay, and that, I mean, again, better message than that? Sure, go find it. I don't know what it would be, but that's what he's saying. Is these things are not here. They don't exist around here anymore. And I just, again, that is just awesome. So these things are gone forever because they have disappeared, not been destroyed. They have disappeared with that old world. Okay. All right. So verse 5. And the one sitting on the throne saying, look, I'm making everything new. Now, this is great. Just if any of you, and I'm sure all of you here have seen the movie, The Passion of the Christ. At one point, when Jesus is carrying his cross, he actually says this to the woman who helped him wipe his face with the cloth. And he wipes his face and he says, behold, I make all things new. What a fantastic line. I mean, that's just mind-blowing. But he says, look, I make all things new. Now, and by making them new, they are being changed. Because he, in this moment, is creating something that does not have death, sorrow, crying, and pain. Doesn't have that. They don't exist in this place. And we're making something that is without these things. And again, I'm trying to figure out how people make this scary, but that's where we are. Okay. All right. And then he said to me, now the he here is his kind of companion who's been with him at this point, and Jesus is there as well. And so then he said to me, write this down, for what I tell you is trustworthy and true. He also said, it is finished. There's a phrase we all recognize from the crucifixion. It is finished. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Alpha and Omega are obviously the Greek alphabet. First letter was Alpha. The last letter was Omega. So basically, I am the A and the Z is what he's saying here. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. To all who are thirsty, I will give freely from the springs of the water of life. The springs of the water of life is a reference back again to the Garden of Eden. There was actually two trees they were told not to eat from. One was the knowledge of good and evil. The other one was the tree of life. Why they didn't eat from the tree of life instead of the knowledge of good and evil, you got me on that one. But that's the one they chose to go after. And then here, you know, the springs of the water of life come from the tree of life. And I think if we read on, I think prior to this, actually, that talks about the tree of life, which we're not going to get into that tonight. But what a great image. Let's see, verse 7. All who are victorious will inherit all these blessings. Again, here's another football analogy. To those who knew the plays as they were being called and were a part of the team, they were victorious. And to the victor go the spoils. And the spoils are no death, sorrow, crying, and pain. And together with our loved one. I mean, again, pretty magnificent image. Victorious will inherit all these blessings. I will be their God. They will be my children. Then he goes on to say, and yes, here comes the burning lake of sulfur that you all are, and I'm going to explain that here in a second. Verse 8. I want you to look at this. I want you to hear this list as I read it to you. But cowards, unbelievers, the corrupt, murderers, the immoral, those who practice witchcraft, idol worshippers, and liars. Their fate is in the fiery lake of burning sulfur. That is the second death. Okay. Think about the end result of all of these things. Okay. Again, cowardice, unbelievers, corrupt, murderers, immoral, witchcraft, idol worshippers, and liars. Think about the end result of all those things. If you participate in any one of these activities, it is going to lead you toward death, sorrow, crying, and pain of some form. So if God is creating this space, this new heaven and new earth, and it's going to be free from death, sorrow, crying, and pain, then any activities, behaviors, beliefs, or anything else is not going to be permitted in that place. So this fiery lake of burning sulfur, do I think that's where the unbelievers are going? No. I think they're going to continue on in this disappearing old heaven and old earth. And Parker, I apologize to you for this because I know that's not what you wanted me to say. But what I think is they're going to miss out on the new heaven and new earth. They're going to stay in the old one and have to deal with whatever is there. And the reason I think that is because what John is experiencing here, what God is showing to him, is these behaviors that are going to result in death, sorrow, crying, and pain. They're not going to be permitted in this place. They're going to be incinerated in this new place. So if God were to allow in, say, a murderer or say a witchcraft person or an idol worshiper or an immoral person or whatever, if God was going to allow one of those people in, that would be dangerous to them because they're not prepared to be there. So they're going to be left outside with hope maybe to straighten out, whatever it is. But they can't be permitted inside because they're going to introduce things that are not allowed in that place. The way I think about that is surgeons. Okay, talk about surgeons. What do surgeons do before they go in? They scrub and scrub and scrub just everything in their hands so they can go in and be clean. And they hold their hands like this and go in, because what they're doing is they don't want to bring contamination into the surgical room, into the OR. That's what they're trying to do. Concept very similar here. God has created a space with no death, sorrow, crying, and pain, problems that we have had since literally the beginning. He's trying to remove those. Therefore, those behaviors cannot be allowed in. And because if those things do follow people in, if they're not, convicted and not healed of those things, they don't allow themselves to allow those things to pass away with the old heaven and old earth. If they do like, Lot's wife did, and they turn and look back, when those things were being destroyed, then it would be dangerous to allow them into the city, because those kind of sinful activities are going to lead to results that are not permitted in the new place. Jump in the comments and tell me if I'm making sense. Are you following me what I'm saying here? Do I believe hell exists? I absolutely do, 100%. And my life, I hope that is about preventing everyone from going there. I may not make that goal, but that's what I live to do, is to help people realize that there's something better than what this world has to offer. And that's what we need to be about. And the reason is because the activities of this world, again, watch the news and pick one. Those kind of behaviors, those kind of attitudes, those kind of belief systems are not going to be available in the next world we're talking about here, because there is no death, sorrow, crying, and pain. And the end result of sin of any kind, pick one, is death, sorrow, crying, and pain. So if they were to get into the city with, some of these sins still upon them, that would not go well for them, because those activities don't exist there. Okay? So I don't want everybody to say, well, Pastor Tim said there's no hell. No, I absolutely believe there's a hell, most assuredly. But what God is creating here is a place for people to live in harmony and love, peace, joy, gentleness, all those things from Galatians. And he's creating that space, and he's not going to allow anything to compromise that, because it's going to be a place of absolute safety. Nobody's going to hurt anyone in that place. It's going to be a place of peace. So I want to make that very clear. All right, friends, we have come to the end of our road here, and I'm sorry I ran over a little bit here tonight. I got a little fired up here tonight. But any feedback? Did you enjoy this study, and did you enjoy tonight? again, this is kind of odd here. Talk to me about tonight, and I'm gonna shout out a few comments here. Um, Matt Clemens, what makes you think that it's gone? That it's what makes you think that it's not gone / destroyed? Matt, flesh that out for me a little bit. I'm not sure what you're asking. What makes you? Because I probably should have looked at that when I was going through it. Matt Clemens, please ask your question again. Help me know what you're talking about. Carol Brown likes it. That's good. Scott Moran makes sense. Good. Eric Gurman, beautiful job. Thank you, Eric. Terry says absolutely very good. Brian says thank you for the piece you gave us tonight. Brian, you could not possibly be more welcome. I'm glad you're here, man. Carol, yes, thank you. Good, amazing. Thank you, Amy. All right, good. Appreciate you guys coming out. Got 30 of you in here right now, so I appreciate that. We just went to 31. I appreciate it even more. So Cindy Moran says, I've thoroughly enjoyed this study. Well, thank you, Cindy. I appreciate that. If you're interested in doing another one of these short-term things, maybe after the first of the year, I would not be opposed to that. If there's a topic you guys wanted to thing and take on, and we could do a 4-week study, I would be happy to come back and do that, especially while the weather's bad here over the next few weeks. And so if you're interested in that, please communicate that to me. And maybe we'll start another one in January if you're interested. I would very much like to hear from you about that, because I don't want to be here if you're not going to be here with me. But if it's something you'd like to continue, particularly while the weather's bad here during the winter, I would be happy to continue doing that. Maybe we'll look at a January study as well. So thank you, Cindy. Joyce, this has been an awesome study, brought tears to my eyes and found some peace. Well, Joyce, makes it worthwhile. So thank you for that. And okay, got a couple people saying they want to continue. Oh, well, it's something you guys want to do. Maybe we'll do another short-term study. If you want to suggest any topics you want to do, I know this one was a little more topical than like a study on a particular section of the Bible. But I'd be happy to do that. If there's any topics you'd like for me to work up or whatever, I really enjoy doing these live streams, again, particularly when the weather is garbage outside. So, Crystal votes for one. Angie votes for one. All right. Yeah. Talk to me. You guys all have my information. Get a hold of me. Tell me what you want to do. And we'll see about doing another study after the first of the year. So very good. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys being a part of this. Again, it would be more weird if I was here talking and no one was listening. So I appreciate those of you who were in. And I just I hope you have found some peace with this, because the idea of the return of Christ has been such an abused, misrepresented thing from the Bible. It's been used in ways it was never intended to be used. And I hope that our conversations here over the past couple of weeks have helped you realize that this is to be an encouraging thing. And I want it to be an encouraging thing. Jesus wanted it to be an encouraging thing. Paul wanted it to be an encouraging thing. John wanted it to be an encouraging thing. And I want you to have that experience of being encouraged by that. Because again, I'm not interested in scaring the hell out of you. I would rather have you choose the road that leads to life. And I'd rather point at that, because that's much more effective in the long run. So, okay. And Amy's going to be traveling tomorrow, so keep her in your prayers. And Miriam votes for another study too. Well, maybe we will do one. So I'd love to hear from you, and we'll see what topic we want to take on. If you have anything you want to suggest, throw that out there. Now, we will not be meeting next week. If we do start another one of these, it will be in January. So not next Tuesday, but sometime after the first of the year. Maybe we'll make it a New Year's resolution thing or something like that. So, all right, cool. Well, thank you guys all. I'm sorry I ran over here tonight. I appreciate the fact you guys didn't leave. I'm 15 minutes over and you guys are still here. I love you guys. So thanks for that. Again, let me know if you want what you may want to do after the first year. Any recommendations you have, I'll be happy to hear them. And I appreciate you all being in here. So have a Merry Christmas. I hope to see you all this weekend. Again, the weather apocalypse that they're calling for, but hopefully we'll be here Christmas Eve, 7:00. And then Christmas morning, we'll be here at 10:00 for a combined service. Daryl has a lot of traditional hymns we're going to sing. It should be just a beautiful, very traditional service. We are going to be online as well for those of you who can't be here. and would very much enjoy seeing you this coming weekend, either Saturday night for Christmas Eve or Sunday morning. And yeah, Merry Christmas, Terry. Merry Christmas, Carol, and safe travels, you, Amy, and Patsy Swindeman says Merry Christmas to all of you. Thank you, Patsy. Patsy can't figure out the chat things, so we got Patsy on my phone. So, and Matt Clements, I definitely appreciate you, bro, man. It's good to see you. Nancy Linhart, I appreciate and I enjoyed getting to meet you guys a week or so ago. Glad to have you in, Eric. You and yours. I'm sure Christmas morning is going to be a just absolute crazy town at your place, and I hope you and your kids get everything you wanted and then some. So very cool. All right, everybody. Well, I want you to go have a good night's sleep tonight. I got to get my sweatshirt on and head home. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for being in here tonight. We'll definitely look at something for January. And again, I'd be very much open to hearing what you might want to do. And we'll go from there. So Merry Christmas to you, Scott Moran. And you all know what you need to go do now. Go wash your hands.